Hola, ¿cómo están? Soy Giovanni Evans y les tengo un episodio muy especial porque estoy con el aclamado director Barry Jenkins, el protagonista de su nueva película y Beale Street Could Talk. Guys, thank you so much for being here. It's such an honor. What a beautiful movie.
Oh, thank you. Thanks for having us.
Remember, love is what brought you here. And if you trusted love this far, don't panic now. Trust it all the way.
Thank you for coming and thank you for doing the movie. I have to tell you, it's one of my favorite movies of the year.
Thank you, man.
Definitely.
Thank you.
Can I ask you, why did you choose this story? I know that you have worked on it before, and why did you come back to this story?
Yeah, I'm a big fan of the author who wrote the book, James Baldwin. I always wanted to work on something that he had done, and when I read this book, I just loved the idea of telling a love story, you know, between these two people, but at the same time telling a story that was about some very real issues that people of color face through the judicial system and law enforcement here in America.
Well, you guys did amazing. I was like, these kids are fantastic.
Yes, exactly.
And how was it for you to have, for the most part, a female protagonist this time? Because in Moonlight we have and you had just one instead of three actors playing the same actor. How was that different for you?
Yeah, it was very different. I think as a director, you're used to like being able to know everything the character knows. And I think in this film, you know, I had to be really careful about understanding, you know, I'm not a woman, James Baldwin is not a woman, and so if somebody like Kiki or Regina or any of the other women, you know, Emily Rios, if any of them had an idea about their character, I had to trust that they knew better than I did because they have had these experiences and I haven't. So it was a learning process for me.
How much did you influence your character?
You know, I recognize that me and Tish actually have a lot of, you know, different ways of approaching a lot of the situations, you know, that she deals with. So actually I learned a lot from her. I mean, Baldwin wrote this beautiful story and watching this young woman grow in that way, but also dealing with the pain of what's making her grow in that way, and, you know, the unfairness of her and this entire, you know, family and community being put in this situation. I think a lot of, you know, there are a lot of women and young men being forced to grow up a lot faster than they should. And
speaking of that, I believe that both communities, the Black community and the Latino community, share so many of the same struggles and the same paths in life. And also that is very common is that the women in our families are very strong.
Exactly.
Just like in the Black community, like in the movie. So I felt related to that. My mom is my hero.
Good.
How was it to have these women be like the main force of the movie?
It was amazing. Like you said, it was very different than Moonlight, you know. And I think for me, it was a wonderful opportunity to explore some of that. And like you said, to pay respect, you know, to the women that function this way, that raised me, you know. And I think there were certain scenes in this film where there were no men, which just the women. And I think, you know, I went to a screening of the movie in Rome, you know, in Italy of all places, and I was trying to figure out, well, how are they going to relate to this? It's exactly the way you said, you know, we all have these very strong women in our lives, and I think what's wonderful about the book that Mr. Baldwin wrote and this film is there's so many times when the men disappeared, and you get to see the women really take control and take command of the lives that are being presented on screen.
They're definitely the heroes of our communities, right?
Yes, sir.
Also, unfortunately, something that we also share, the Black community and the Latino community, is our experience with the criminal system and the injustices. And how was that for you guys?
Yeah, I mean, you know, you talk about the plight of you know, the Latino community, the African American community, sort of having to deal with you know, a system that's you know, set in place to protect us, but, you know, continuously fails us time and time again. And you have these situations where relationships are being threatened, families are being threatened, love is being threatened ultimately, and humanity. And for me, it just meant a lot to be able to, you know, give a voice to these young men, to add humanity to their lives, to get people to see that they are you know, men who love. Right. You know, they have families who love them back, and so, you know, this means something. This means something to be able to show people that they're real people.
And can I ask you, you're Canadian,
Yeah.
So is experience different in Canada to the United States?
Not really. I mean, racial prejudices exist all over the earth. You know, racial prejudices exist everywhere. You know, specifically the epidemic of police brutality and mass incarceration and false imprisonment doesn't exist on that magnitude in Canada. But you know, for me, it's just as much my reality as it is anyone else's. You know, I've lived and worked in the United States now for 10 years. So, you know, for me, it's just as much my experience as anyone else's.
Unfortunately, here in Chicago, it's an epidemic.
Yeah.
The black community makes 25% of the population of Chicago, and somehow there's 70% of the population in jails.
Somehow.
Somehow.
Yeah, you know, it's interesting because I think what Mr. Baldwin was doing was really provocative. You know, the woman in the film, you know, who has been assaulted is Puerto Rican, you know, and the man, the cop, has decided, you know, he's going to punish for this as black. I don't think he cares about either one. He doesn't care about finding justice for her, you know, and he also doesn't care that Fonnie didn't do this thing that he did. But what happens is we empower these people, and they have so much power that they can manipulate the system. And I think they manipulate the system in a certain way that the rights of this Puerto Rican woman and the rights of this black man are both trampled in the process. So, you know, I think it's a very provocative piece, and I think you're right. There is this alignment between, I like to say, black and brown in the film that I think was very important to Mr. Baldwin's work.
How do you think that our communities can work together? Because sometimes it feels that we're not working together when we have so many of the same problems.
You know what? I think I look at this film as an example. You know, this is a black film for sure.
Yeah.
But if you go down the cast list, you know, we have Diego Luna, Emily Rios, Pedro Pascal. You know, all these people of color. You know, who are from a different culture, but we're united in telling the story. That let's show how we're all united. You know, and let's find a common ground and try to find a way to help us all rise. You know.
It's a beautiful movie.
Thank you.
It's very powerful also, and sad, but it's about family, it's about love more than anything. And as you guys said, hopefully together, both communities, all communities, can end these injustices and can just work to be together.
Yes, sir.
So, thank you very much, guys, for being here. I really appreciate it. Eso es todo de nuestra parte. Hasta la próxima.
Yeah.